Hey Team P, I'm Lisa. Super excited to be chatting with you guys, even if it's virtually. We miss being together. So we wanted to take an opportunity to provide our stretch, strengthen, and roll class so that when you're outside doing your walking and your running, you can add this component to make sure that your body's staying healthy and that your movement is as optimal as we can be, because that really does help to prevent injury. So the class is called SSR, Stretch, Strengthen, and Roll. So 3 components, and they're all equally important to minimizing muscle imbalance. Muscle imbalance is what often will cause issues with your running and your walking. So I'm going to share my screen with you in just a minute so you can see the kinds of things that we're talking about. So picture's worth 1,000 words, right? So here we have, in just a moment, we've got a picture that shows you somebody whose shoulders are really quite rounded. They've got a lot of sway in the back, and that happens, the rounded back, because the muscles in the chest are very tight, the muscles in the back of the shoulders are very weak, and that really creates issues, particularly with posture. And then if you look at the low back, you see that sway, the booty is hanging out, the belly's kind of protruding. That can have to do with tight hip flexors and a weak booty. So we will actually address both of those issues in the class. We're going to show you one more picture here. Take a look at the skeleton with the heads on the, what would it be, right side of your screen. When your head is centered on your body, it weighs on average about 12 pounds. Well, the more your head protrudes forward, relatively speaking, the more weight your body is carrying, and that puts stress on your spine in an unhealthy way. So we're going to show you how you can correct that. Now take a look at the picture of the runner. See how there's a little blue line in front of her leg, showing that she's got excellent flexibility in her hips flexors and a very strong booty. That's what gives you your forward movement when you're walking and you're running. So we'll go ahead and take those pictures away, and those are some of the key things we're going to talk about, right? We're going to talk about muscle imbalances up top, muscle imbalances in the hip flexors and with the booty, and also with your feet. There can be issues with foot strength and lower leg flexibility that can really impact you. So going forward, we're going to start with stretching, right? There are 2 kinds of stretching. The first one is dynamic stretching, and that's the kind of stretching that prepares your body for movement. It's the stretching that you do when we gather as a team. That's what we did prior to heading out. So I'm going to quickly run you through what you would do, and we'll always begin with posture. So I want you to think about your mid-body, your core. I want you to draw your belly in as if you're trying to get your belly button to touch your spine. Make your body as tall as you can. Take those arms, reach way overhead if you're taking good form running or good form walking. They talk about standing tall. That's what we're talking about. And then let those arms fall. As we warm up, I want you to keep this nice tall posture. So let's go ahead and start right from there. I'm going to have you just start with a nice little march, lifting those knees up. So we're really warming the body. We're slowly raising the heart rate, and we're preparing the muscles and the joints for the activity that's about to occur, and that would be running or walking. So you go right from this move into a heel kick. So you can see that my body is nice and tall. We don't want any of this. Keep your body nice and tall. It's okay if your heel doesn't hit your hand. What we're trying to do is get the hamstrings to fire. Then we're going to move into the third move, which is a heel lift to the inside. Same thing. It doesn't matter if you touch your hand to your heel. All you want to do is start to open up those hips. Knee is pointed out. Right from here, we're going to go into open and close the gate. Now, some people might want something to hold on to. You can use a fence, you can use the wall, or if you've got really good balance, you don't need either. But what you're going to do is just lift your leg up and out to the side. That's opening the gate. Here we go, closing the gate. So this is a bigger movement. So slowly our movements are getting a little bit bigger. And then we'll go ahead and switch sides. Perfect, perfect. You might have heard my hip do a little crack as it warms up here. So that's what we've got going on. Now, as I put this foot down, I'm going to leave my heel up, and I'm just going to rotate that ankle, loosening the ankle, and then I'm going to reverse that. I think you can see. There you go. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. All right. So next I want you to just take those arms and swing them the crutch down just a little bit. You can be standing nice and tall. Take those arms back. Usually the way I end this is I'll have you bring your arms up, pull them down to your side, and then you're ready to do your walking or your running. So that is our dynamic stretching, which really warms up and prepares your body for your run. So the next part of SSR is strengthening. This is so key. We're going to start with core strength. What I want you to do is, if you've never done a plank, I want you to learn how. And there are a lot of options. So I'm going to move down to the ground. I'm going to start out on all fours. So my hands are directly underneath my shoulders. My knees are under my hips. Now this might be where you start. If you can, you might be able to put those elbows down on the ground, straighten your booty out, and this is another version of the plank from your knees. Another option would be to drop your toes, lift your knees up, and hold right here. Now from this position, my belly is pulling in really tight. I'm squeezing my booty, and I'm making my legs very, very active. Then I'll just start to think about my breath, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. So that's really it. That's a front plank, and I want you to try and do that for 30 seconds. Once you can do that for 30 seconds, then you do it for 3 times. So not just once, do it, take a little break, go back again, because everything we do really does encompass core strength. The other little trick is some of our foam rolling will include that front plank as a part of our positioning. So moving on to the strengthening exercise number 2, which is a side plank. For this one, you're going to lay on your side, you're going to line your elbow up with your shoulder, and you're going to make your body one long line. So if I'm on a mat here, you can see the front of the mat, I will try and get my knees, my hips, and my upper body in line with the very front edge of the mat. If you can't lift your hand off the ground, you are allowed to put that hand in front of your body for additional support. But it's super important for this part of your body to be stacked, hips right on top of one another. Sometimes people will do this, or they may roll back. We want you in a very stacked position. Now, if this is too easy and you've done this before, you can take your top leg and extend it, put the instep of your foot on the floor. You might even be able to lift that hand up into the air, or maybe you have both legs straight and you have them staggered. All kinds of options, but this is one of the safest moves you can do for core strength and to work your obliques. So that's core. We just did front plank for 30 seconds, and I would have you do side plank, each side, 30 seconds. So that's that, right? So now we're going to move on to our booty, and then we're going to work our way down the body. For your booty, we do what we call a glute matrix. So I'm going to go back down to the floor. I'm going to start all the way down on my side. Some people may prefer to be propped up on your elbow, and that's fine. I don't know if you'll be able to see me if I do this. So important here to have that body stacked. My hips are run right on top of the other, and I'm going to bend my bottom leg. I'm going to take my top foot, I'm going to flex that foot, dorsiflex, pulling my toes to my nose, and I'm going to move that leg a teeny bit behind me. Notice my foot is in the air. I was standing up, that foot would be shoulder width apart. So it's probably, I don't know, 6-8 inches off the ground. From that position, we're going to lift up and pause and bring it down. Up and pause and bring it down. So right now, we're working a muscle right here called the glute medius. That muscle helps to keep our hips level and really is super important in maintaining good health for your lower body. So lift up and pause and drop it down. I want you to do this 10 times. Once you hit 10 reps, I want you to keep that foot flexed, and I want you to draw a circle with your foot. Now notice my leg never touches the ground. It's moving in front of my lower leg as well as behind my lower leg. And I'm just making a circle. Using my heel, I'm tracing the numbers on a clock, counterclockwise. All right, so the key again is hips are stacked. You don't want to roll back. Your quads will want to be helpers. If you roll back and you do this, it's your quads working. That's the front of your thigh. We are shooting for the glute medius, this muscle right here. It pulls your foot away from your body. So we've got the leg lift, then the circles, and then we're going to draw a box. So I'm going to bring my foot in front of my body, lift it up, pull my heel back behind my bottom leg, drop it down, and pull it forward. So now my leg is moving in a clockwise position. So I just rotated rather than going forward. I'm moving it now backwards. Perfect, perfect, perfect. All right, so we're gonna do that 10 leg lifts, 10 circles, and 10 squares. Then we're gonna roll onto your back, your shoulders and your booty on the ground, eyes right up at the ceiling, hands at your side. You're gonna take your belly and pull that belly button down towards the floor, and then you're gonna lift up, squeezing the booty, and then bring it down. You lift up and you exhale, you bring the booty down and you inhale. Lifting up and squeezing, and then bringing it down. So now we're working the glute max, the biggest muscle you have, the strongest muscle you have. Inhaling down, exhaling up. So those 4 moves are what we call the glute matrix. We've got the leg lift, leg circles, leg squares, 10 reps each side. And then 4th move is the hip bridge, which I just demonstrated where you're on your back. So once you've done all 4 of those exercises, you've done lots to strengthen your booty. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to show you. So the glute medius is the muscle that helps your hips to stay level. If you lift your leg and your hips do this muscle needs to be stronger. It needs to be able to hold you out like this. So that's the only way to work it, is to target it, just like we did. You can do all the squats in the world, it's not going to help that muscle. But as runners, everything we do is a single leg move. So that particular move is super important, and love for you to do that. The key is, when do you do it, right? Do you do all your planks? Do you do the glute matrix? It doesn't matter when you fit it in. The key is that you do it. And probably at least twice a week is what they would recommend. So maybe you can break it up. Maybe in the morning you get up and you do your planks. It takes, what, 3 minutes maybe? And then maybe at night you go through the glute matrix. We do that on Mondays and Wednesdays, Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'll show you what we can do. So we did the glutes. Now we're going to do some work for our quads. For our quads, what we're going to do is a reverse lunge. So I'm going to step back. I'm going to drop my knee down. So I'll show you from the side. Step back. Both knees bend. My upper body has a tiny lean forward, and then I stand up. Now, if you have issues with mobility and you can't take that big a step or that far down, you just do everything in a smaller version. Maybe a little step back, a little bend down, and come up. So your quad, what this muscle does right here is it extends your leg. So when I am doing a squat, a lunge, this leg is working. As I stand up, that quad helps to stay with my leg. Oops, I just realized I got my head cut off. We'll fix that. So for the reverse lunge, other things you want to look for. This front foot is pointing forward. Both feet are pointed forward, and it's like they're on railroad tracks. I'm not on a balance beam. My leg isn't behind me. It's next to it. So think railroad tracks. Toes are pointed forward, and knee is right over the middle part of your foot. So think of your second and third toe. That's where your knee is aiming. Sometimes people's knee will do this. It'll lean in towards the middle part of your body. We want it to stay right over the foot, perpendicular to the ground. Every once in a while, to go the other direction, but really think about making the lower leg super stable and working the quad as you stand up. So you'll take a step back, bend both knees, stand up. Inhale, take a step back. Exhale, stand up. Inhale, take a step back. Exhale, stand up. So we'll do 10 reps, and then we're going to switch sides. So I'll show you that same thing, other side. You're here, you take a step back, you drop down, both knees bend, and you come up. Now remember, it's fine to have a prop, a table, a wall. You could do it this way. Hold the wall here. Take a step back, drop both knees, and come up. Now if you notice, my upper body did have a teeny bit of lean to it, which is fine, because by leaning forward a little bit, I'll show you on this side, take a step back, little bit of a lean,
involves the booty. So as you stand up, your quad works, and at the very end, as you do this part, it's your booty. So we're actually getting 2 for 1 right there. Primarily quads, but also a little bit of booty work. So there you have it. That's your quad exercise, lunges on both sides. If you guys have any questions, these exercises are online at playmakers.com. Click on injury articles. This will be under strengthening exercises. So questions, feel free to reach out or go right online. So next up, we're moving down the body, right? So I'm going to have you do some calf raises. Again, some people like to have a little prop. What you're going to do is think about your toes. I want all 10 toes really active. I want your feet shoulder width apart, body nice and tall. Grab your prop, and I want you to roll up onto your toes, squeeze your calves, and then come back down. So again, we're going to roll up onto our our toes, squeeze the calves, and then come down. So exhale as you come up, inhale coming down. You don't have to stop. I'm just trying to make sure I'm in the camera, bringing it up and dropping it down. Bringing it up and squeezing, dropping it down. Try to use all 10 toes. Sometimes people will do it and they'll have a tendency to roll out or roll in. We want those knees to be nice and lined up with the middle part of your foot. Press up onto your toes, squeeze your calves, and then lower down. One more time, pressing up, and then we lower down. So we've done core, we've done booty, we've done quads, and we've done calves. The one thing we didn't talk about was our feet. And believe it or not, there are foot exercises. For the sake of time, we're not going to cover those. But online, where you find the strengthening exercises, there are foot exercises. And if you ever want to stop in at Playmakers, I'd be happy to show you those. Hardly anyone goes to the gym for foot day, but we should, and it's important. So know that that's available. But without further ado, what we're going to do is show you a quick screen share as we begin to talk about the R part of the program, rolling, foam rolling. When we do foam rolling, I think it's slide 18, you've got lots of options. So it's back one. There we go. Perfect. So if you look at the little Spider-Man guy in the lower corner, you can see that there is fascia. That's what that little webbing is over the body. That is everywhere in our body, and it actually encases the muscles. Sometimes that fascia will adhere to the muscle beneath it, and that can limit your range of motion. So the two other pictures that you see there, a foam roller and then a stick that you can use to help break that up. But check out the rest of the screen because it says MYO. This says myofascial release. Myo stands for muscle, and fascia is what we just talked about, that spider webbing connective tissue that surrounds not just each individual muscle, but it's all connected, literally like a Spider-Man suit over your whole body. So myofascial release is really just trying to do a massage of your muscles. When it's self-myofascial release, that means you're doing it, which means you can do it all the time, right? Because you can't afford to go get a massage every day. But foam rolling, you can do. So let's talk a little bit more about that. So we'll go ahead and get rid of that screen. Some of you guys have probably tried foam rolling. I know when we teach class, we'll have people say, oh, I tried it, but it was horrible, it was painful. It can be uncomfortable, but it shouldn't be outright painful. Looking at the screen there talks about when should you do it. The key is yes, when, do it. Ideally, you'll do it before you work out or before you stretch. So it can actually be a part of your dynamic warm-up, or it can be done after. But the key is doing the foam rolling helps to minimize those adhesions where the connective tissue actually kind of sticks to the muscle. I don't know if you may see my hands. So if you've got an adhesion where the fascia is sticking, it limits your range of motion. So normally there might be gliding like this. That's assuming you're well hydrated. So drinking plenty of fluids is important. If there's a sticking point, it doesn't move like it should. And it really can have an impact on your performance. So the why is to make sure that our range of motion is good. And then, the really key part here is
If anything ever hurts, we recommend that you not do it. Always talk with your provider if you have any special concerns, but you do want to avoid the joints. So when we're doing foam rolling, our target is muscle, and the whole idea is muscle release. So if you're in so much discomfort that you can't take a breath, it's not going to do what it's supposed to do. Those muscles aren't going to release. And that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started. So with the strengthening exercises, I kind of started with upper body, core, and worked my way down. I'm going to do the exact opposite for foam rolling. So you don't really need to have any special tools. I'm going to start with what we call an orb. It's just a black ball that's maybe like 2.5 inches around. I'm going to put this little ball underneath my foot, and I'm going to step on it, and I'm going to push down onto that ball, and I'm going to roll right up the middle of my foot. Then I'm going to roll on it and bring it up the inside, the arch part, and then I'll bring it up the outside. So have kind of a system. Go slowly, push, maybe move about 1 inch per second. You're looking for an area that's tender or a little uncomfortable. That means you found one of those adhesions. And when you find it, just stop. Stay right where you are with that amount of pressure for about 20 to 30 seconds. And that adhesion should start to release. And then you can go back to that movement. So you're slowly bringing your foot back and forth across my orb. Now, if you don't have an orb, maybe you use a tennis ball. I've heard of people using softballs. Golf ball will work, but it's very, very hard. It might be too hard and it might be uncomfortable. Same can be true with a lacrosse ball, but you probably have something at home, or we have these orbs available here at the store at Playmakers. So lots of options. So be sure to do both feet. Make sure you hit right up the middle of the foot and on the inside and onto the outside, because we're in tight in different spots, but we want to be sure and address everything we can. So from the foot, we're going to move right to the calf area where I will use a foam roller. But before I move down, I'm going to show you that not all foam rollers are the same, and we don't all need the same kind. The one on the far end is actually not as dense, it's not as firm as this one on the other side. This one is a little more firm, and as you can see, it's got some ridges, which act kind of like fingers on your muscles to help release the tension. The one in the middle, I'm going to turn this like this, you can see it's black in there. It's actually almost like PVC. It's very firm with a foam covering, so this one is the most dense. Now, some of us don't need much pressure or much density at all to get the job done. Other times you need a lot. So that being said, I'm going to hit the ground. Me personally, I usually need something a little more dense. So I'm going to be on my booty, and I'm going to take the foam roller and I'm going to put it right under my leg, just above my ankle. Now, if this is not possible, if you can't lift yourself up, you can stay seated and you would just slowly move the foam roller up the balance of your leg. If you can lift yourself up, then you can just kind of move forward and back. Now remember, the calf has different muscle groups, right? Different sides. So what I want you to do is, as you're rolling, use the same concept we did on the foot, right? I want you to go right up the middle of the leg and then come back down. And then turn your toe out, but the outside of the calf, and then come back down. If you find an area that's tender, you just stay right there. Now, let's talk about what is tender. When we're teaching this class live, sometimes people stop talking. On a scale of 1 to 10, the amount of discomfort is probably around a 5. If it's any more than that, you need to take some of the pressure away. If it's not enough pressure for your calf, you take one leg and you cross it over. That puts more pressure on the leg. So I'm doing one leg crossed over the other. My calves tend to be really tight. You can also, if you find an area of discomfort, watch my foot. I'm going to roll my foot around. So I'm moving my foot through a range of motion as I'm foam rolling tender spots in my calf. So you would do that on both sides. And then generally work your way right up the back side of the leg. So now I move the foam roller still under my leg, but just above the knee. I'm going to lift my body up, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to slowly move my body forward on the foam roller, and then slowly come back. And quads are a group of muscles, so you may need to do the same thing. Turn your toe out, and you're rolling up more the outside of the leg.
and slowly come back down, making sure to stay away from the knee joint. Turn your toes in towards the middle part of the body, roll forward and roll back. Make sure you're breathing. And if you find a tender spot, just hold right there for 20 to 30 seconds, and that muscle should release for you. So I am going to now do the quads, and I'm going to start with the outer part of the quad. Some people call it the IT band. That is where your IT band is located, but really what we're doing is we're massaging the outer part of the quad. So for this, I'm going to be in this modified side plank that we talked about with my elbow underneath my body. My hips are just above the foam roller, and my free leg is in front of me. And I'm slowly going to pull that foam roller down the length of my thigh. I don't know if you can see it like that. There we go. So I am trying to find a tender spot. Oops, right there, we got one. It didn't take long. So I'm just going to hold right here for about 20 to 30 seconds, let that muscle release, and then slowly move back up and down the thigh. And again, I like to use the rule of 4. Go up and down that leg 4 times slowly. If you don't find a tender spot, it's time to move on. Maybe that's not a tight area for you. From there, I'm going to go right into my quads, where we'll use the front plank to help to do this. So you're going to be, I take the foam roller and I place it so it's in between my legs and hanging out to the side of my body. And then I move back on the mat. I go down onto my elbows, and I start just above my knee. And now I'm going to push my body backwards, like walking backwards. So I'm moving that foam roller up the top of my quad, looking for an area that's tight. So I'm going to roll my toes out and do the same thing, bring it in, and oops, there's a tender spot for me. So I would wait right here for about 20 to 30 seconds. Let that release. Now we have a special trick right here. It's called pin and stretch. I'm going to hold it right there, and I'm going to bend my knee and straighten my knee. Bend the knee and straighten the knee. Just do it 2 to 3 times, and then move on, looking for another tight or tender spot in your quads. All right. So we've done feet, we've done calves, we did the hammies, we did the quads. Now it's time for the boot. So for this one, you're going to sit right on top of the foam roller. And picture that you're wearing a pair of jeans. The jean pockets are kind of off to the side. So while I'm sitting on here nice and tall, all I'm going to do is tilt my body to the side until I'm on that pretend jean pocket. That's right about where we're trying to target. And all I'm going to do is rock my body back and forth. Now, a lot of times we get tightness back here. If you find a tight spot, just hold right there. Take a couple of deep breaths, and then continue back and forth on that glute. So you can roll it a little bit back and forth, but the movement is primarily side to side. And honestly, that's a big part of the foam rolling, is playing around with it until you can figure out what position works best for you, so that you're working on the muscle we're trying to avoid the bones. So same thing for the other side of the booty, rolling out to the side and stretching through here. So now that we've done our foam rolling, I am going to show you one more. I wasn't going to, are we doing all right for time? Okay. So we talked about that person that's always crunched like this. Doing a plank is going to help with core strength and chest strength, but sometimes these muscles here are so tight that this needs to be stretched in order for back strength to make a difference. So I'm going to use the foam roller right up and down the middle of my spine. I'm going to make sure that my head and neck are supported on the foam roller, and all I'm going to do is open my arms to the side. Sometimes people can't get their arms down to the ground because it's so tight through here, their arms won't reach that far. And then we have some fun. Then you just make snow angels. Now you may be able to keep your fingers in contact with the ground as you slowly move your arms up above your head. But if you can't, just leave them in the air and bring them up like this. Mobility is one of those things we can regain, but we need to work on it, right? So if we don't want those rounded shoulders, we need to be sure that our chest is nice and open. So there you go. That's your chest opener for the day. And since we're seated on the ground, we're going to quickly move right into static stretching. So we were SSR stretch, and we strengthened, and then we rolled. but we're going to finish with stretching too, because static stretching, what most people think of as stretching, is almost always done at the end of your exercise program. Your muscles, when they're working, they're constantly contracting. Picture my fingers are the muscles. Those muscle filaments literally do this. And sometimes they end up really tightened. So we're going to try and stretch them back to their original length and leave your body feeling nice and healthy. So let's start on the ground, since that's where I am right now. We're going to be on your back, knees bent, feet on the ground. I'm going to have you lift one leg up, cross your ankle over your knee. For some people, this is all you're going to need. I am stretching the glute on my leg that's crossed over. Others of you might need to reach through, grab that thigh, and pull up. If you can, you'll know when you're there. You should feel stretch. You should never feel pain. If there's pain, dial back just a tiny little bit. Now with stretches, we want to hold 15 to 20 seconds. We're not going to do that length of time right now, but it is important when you're doing it on your own to give your body time to relax. So you would do that move on both sides. Again, ankle over knee, pulling up, stretching through the glutes. And then I'm going to push up to what I call the coaching position, where you're on one knee's on the ground, body's nice and tall. My other leg is out in front of me, kind of like a coach, right? So I want my body squared up towards the front. My knee is right over my foot at the moment. I'm going to reach out and I'm going to bring my arms up, and then I'm going to lean into this stretch. So I went from this position straight up and down, pushing through this hip. So we talked about how these hip flexors can get a little tight. That can happen if you spend a lot of time seated at your desk. It can happen when you're running. Those muscles work to pull the body up. You can undo that, and this is one of those stretches that will help. So you reach out and up, and again, you should feel the stretch right in here. You should hold that for about 20 seconds. Sometimes people will feel a little deeper stretch if they take their arms like a rainbow and reach up and away. So I'm going to reach towards the side of my front leg, reaching away from the spot here and holding for 15 to 20 seconds. So that's a really important stretch. So the person where you saw their back was arched when they were, I don't know if you can see it like this, it's because this is pulling them down and their glutes aren't strong enough. So we did that glute matrix to strengthen here, and now we're stretching this area. So that's how those two moves combined help to minimize that. So I like to do a hamstring stretch from standing. So we did our glutes, we did the hip flexors, and now I'm going to do the hamstring. I'm just going to stick one leg out, toe is up, and I'm going to have a little bend, pushing my booty back. So sometimes people will stand near a wall, and they'll actually try and get their booty to touch so that you know you're moving your body backwards enough. But you're trying to feel stretch in the hamstring, and again, it shouldn't be like screaming pain. You want to feel a little stretch, but if it's screaming pain, you need to straighten up a little bit more and make it a little less intense. So you would do that move on both sides. To get your quad, we're going to stand all the way up. I usually will hold something. Occasionally I find people with wicked awesome balance, and they'll just grab their foot and pull that heel towards the booty. Now, I've had issues with my knees, and there are times when I can't do this from the side. You'll see it requires quite a bit of knee flexion. You can put your foot on a chair, and it's going to stretch that muscle in a very similar way. So if you have a footstool or a chair, just use that for the stretch. It doesn't need to be quite this far, and you're doing the same move, but that's important. Quads get a lot of work when we're running. So we have the glute stretch, we have the hamstring stretch, the quads. Now we're going to do the calves. So we're moving right down the body. So you need something. You could use a wall or a little post like this. My feet are lined up like they're on railroad tracks, okay? And they are toes pointed forward and about shoulder width apart. One leg is behind me, one leg is in front, and my leg is straight. Now the biggest mistake people will make is that back foot wants to turn out. So do it in a place where you can look back. Make sure your toes are both pointed the same direction. If you can't do it with your leg this far out, usually just bringing that back foot in a little teeny bit will help. In your calf, there are two muscles. This stretch here, it's the one that's up higher. You're going to feel it just below the knee. And then you're going to stand up a little more. You're going to put a bend in both knees, keep both heels down, and it'll move the stretch lower. Which way do I need to go so you can see that better? There you go. So as I bend down, both heels are down, my feet are still shoulder width apart, and my toes are still pointed towards you. It's actually good that I turn this way too, because sometimes when you're doing this one, this knee will do this. That knee needs to stay right over your back toe, and you'll feel it stretch move down your calf. So that's what we've got, guys. It's important to do all three components, stretching, both parts, the warm-up and the static stretching at the end, the strengthening, and the foam rolling. And it doesn't have to be all at once. Sometimes people will break it up, like I was saying earlier, and do a little chunk at one point during the day when you first get up, and then another little bit of it later at night. Or have some fun with it, do it with some friends that you know from Team P. The main thing is to do it. Again, my name is Lisa. I do work here at Playmakers, and I am a certified personal trainer, so if you guys have any questions and you need to reach out, you can reach me here at Playmakers, and I hope to see you out on the trails, guys. Have a great night.